for the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the DuPonts, the Mellons, the bank gangsters who made money on the interest of America's war debt. Only twice in the history of the United States has our country had no national debt, and during those years of no national debt, which was over 100 years ago, those two times, over 100 years ago, America prospered beyond anybody's belief. The kings and queens in England could not get their head around how America, isolated across the Atlantic Ocean, not participating in all their little wars and their little alliances, was prospering. And people were leaving Europe in droves and shiploads. They would agree to indenture themselves to 7 years of slavehood. It was called an indentured servant. And people would literally sign papers to be this boss or that boss's servant, a maid, a horse trainer, whatever, to get the passage to get from Europe to the United States. That's how great. And America is still coasting on that reputation made over 130 years ago. And the two brief periods where we managed to have no national debt, owed no bankers anything, and the bankers hated it. They arranged to have John Wilkes Booth kill Abraham Lincoln. They arranged to have George Herbert Walker Bush hire the 3 Sicilians that came from Sicilia that actually did the 3 shots from 3 different angles to kill President John Fitzgerald Kennedy. That's right. Lee Harvey Oswald was a fall guy. He had nothing to do with it whatsoever. All the history, you've been brainwashed by Walter Cronkite and all the other major media, I would call them yellow journalism television networks. It's lies. They're telling you the truth. And the key to understanding this and why it's relevant now, today, is to go look at that YouTube footage on my channel, William Wagner channel, Jane, BBC, 9/11, 7 World Trade Center. Put in those tag words and watch Jane announce the building you can see still standing behind her over her left shoulder. I even put an arrow on the footage to point to it to make sure you would find it. She announced it already fell when it's still standing. And then about 20, 30 minutes later, it does collapse and no plane hit it. They can't explain that. So CNN, or what I like to call is Communist Negative Network News, CNN, did not mention 7 World Trade Center. They did not mention that out in Pennsylvania, in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, where they allegedly, a 3rd airliner was shot down and crashed. They didn't find a single suitcase. They didn't find an engine, a titanium steel engine that should have been laying there somewhere in the woods. They didn't find any trace. In fact, Wally Miller, the coroner for that county, I talked to 3 times. The first 2 times he said to me, I stopped being coroner after about 15 minutes. I couldn't find a fingernail, a bloody piece of hair, nothing, no bodies. How does a plane explode in the air and they find no bodies? Remember when the space shuttle came back entry and it broke up and spread across 8 or 9 southern states? They found the bodies. They even found the astronauts' heads still in their helmets, severed from the bodies, several of them. They found the bodies. And that burned all the way down from orbit, from the orbiting space, broke apart, and they still found the bodies. Badly burned, decapitated, all that ugly stuff, but they found the bodies. But in Shanksville on 9/11, this county coroner of that county could not find a drop of blood. The corporate media, the yellow journalism media, Fox, CNN, ABC, BBC, they just ignore that. So, oh yeah, a plane crashed here. People on the ground said it looked like somebody just took a big truck and dumped a bunch of garbage there. Metal garbage. It didn't look like any plane crash anybody had ever seen because it wasn't a plane crash. Hello? You have been dumbed down and fed this lie since 2001. That's 12 years of continual brainwashing and brainwashing. But on this channel, on Take Back America, I want to bring you something that will bring you some truth and some thoughts. I didn't run my mouth off. I want you to see this. It's a documentary I did not produce, but it's very good. But before I go there, we're going to go there in just a second. I want to show you this flag. It's got literally hundreds of names of firefighters and people who died in the Twin Towers. I'll just read first couple of names. Jeffrey Coleman, Sarah Law, Kieran Martin. First officer, Thomas McGinnis. Down in the next line, William Wees, Lorraine Bay, Sandra Bradshaw. Down in the next red flag stripe, Lawrence Abel, William F. Abramson, Richard Anthony, Anthony Alvarado, Lorraine D. Antigua, Peter Paul, Apollo Faustino. Down to the next white stripe, Joshua David Bernheim, George Bishop, Jeffrey Bitter. These were alive, living people, thinking they were working in the most secure place in New York City. And they're all dead. And George Herbert Walker Bush lied to you. Obama continues the lie. And Congress actually appointed a special grand master to pay off the 3,000 families to shut their mouth and not sue in federal court, where you could get evidence on a court federal record and prove what was really true. They didn't want that. Congress didn't want that. The leaders of the Democratic Party, the leaders of the Republican Party, they did not want a federal lawsuit that would bring embarrassing questions like why George Herbert Walker Bush just happens to fly down to Florida, the county where his brother Jeb is governor and can declare martial law to protect him, just in case enough Americans, including Americans in the military, figure out that the president has committed treason. The vice president has committed treason, high treason, worthy of death. So he's down there where his brother can protect him, just in case the federals turn against their own commander-in-chief. This was carefully plotted out, carefully thought out. But something went wrong, and the plane that was supposed to hit 7 World Trade Center never got there. But the demolition charges brought it down anyway 6 hours later. I think you need to see this and hear this documentary. So I'm going to shut my mouth. I just want you to know CNN has been lying to you. All the other channels have lied to you. They won't tell you what's really going on. Please watch this. Pay attention. People died because George lied.